Untouched Patagonia was a 16-day trip to some of the remoter areas of the Chilean part of Patagonia. It started with 2 nights in Santiago, the capital of Chile, and involved a wine tasting and then a visit to Valparaiso. Valparaiso is the second largest metropolitan area in Chile and one of South Pacific's most important ports. However, for the tourists, the most obvious features of the city is the graffiti-clad walls and buildings, which have been inspired by a growing number of artists and cultural entrepreneurs who have been attracted to the city. Valparaiso is built on a hill, so it's common practice to use cable cars to get yourself from the top of the city down to the bottom of the city. Valparaiso was hit by an earthquake about 100 years ago, and you can still see the impact of that on some of the buildings in the city. However, what I really loved was looking at the graffiti and the different pictures and things like that in the building. A lovely place to visit. After 2 days in Santiago, our group of 14 clients and 2 guides flew from Santiago Airport to Balmaceda Airport. We picked up 4 4x4 cars to begin our holiday along the Carretera Austral. The Carretera Austral is the name given to Chile's Route 7. It runs about 1,240 kilometres from Puerto Montt to Villa O'Higgins. It's the access road to one of the most rural areas and remote areas of Patagonia. Construction of the highway was commenced in 1976 under the dictatorship of Augustus Pinochet, who wanted the road to connect a number of remote communities. Our holiday involved driving a part of the Carretera Austral from the airport to Cochrane, a circular tour stopping at various places along the way to engage in lots of activities. Although the road is well constructed, it's largely unpaved, which means that the road is very dusty and was very challenging to drive upon or drive along. The scenery along the route was absolutely incredible, and we took quite a long time to do the various trips that we were doing because we were constantly stopping to view the scenery, to look at what was going on around about us, to say hi to people who worked and lived their lives along the road, the Carretera Austral. The road didn't only allow us to immerse ourselves in the scenery and the beauty of the surroundings that we were seeing on almost a minute-to-minute basis, but also allowed us to understand and have a better understanding of the culture and the people who lived in this remote area of Patagonia. The scenery was outstanding, with snow-capped mountains and crystal clear lakes, fjords, just everything just competing for our attention. It was just amazing to see the whole scenario, basically. We visited and stayed in some really interesting towns en route. Coyhaique apparently has the largest Chilean flag in the whole of Chile. I'm not really sure why, but that's what we were advised, and it's got some beautiful parks surrounding it that we went for a walk in. And the hotel we stayed in Coyhaique was just absolutely lovely. It has absolutely fantastically beautiful gardens, as you can see, and again there were some fantastic and wonderful walks from the town. A lovely backdrop to the adventures we experienced. The area around the part of the Carretera Austral that we visited is a walker's paradise. The variety of walks is amazing, not only in terms of the different terrain, but also in terms of the type of walks available. There are walks to suit every skill level, from simple walks along lakes to higher walks to miradors with fantastic views. Although we did not do this, there are long distance trails which you can do by combining shorter walks into a multi-day trip with overnight camping. There are a number of national parks in the area, and there's a lot of work going on to rewild these national parks to put them back to what they were originally. Wardens look after the national parks and you have to pay to enter them. However, in return for your money, you get to walk in some very beautiful areas, and you also have access to the information that allows you to make the most of your time in the national park. Within the Parc National, you can take a boat trip to the Hanging Glacier. The Hanging Glacier many years ago used to descend much further than it does now, but it's subject to the climate changes that all of the world, I suppose, is subject to, and the Hanging Glacier is much higher up now. However, it's still a spectacular sight, and the boat ride is well worth going to do. The puma walk is not a walk in search of pumas, and indeed you're unlikely to see a puma on any of the walks in this part of Chile. It is, however, a lovely walk in a rainforest. It was one of the more challenging walks that we did because it involved quite a lot of ascent into quite rough terrain. And on our walk, it also involved getting to the snow line and playing and walking in the snow. It did mean we didn't actually reach the laguna that we were hoping to get to, but we did have a really nice walk nonetheless. And I have to say, it was an experience walking in a rainforest, clambering through snow, making snowmen, and having a snowball fight. I would never really have associated rainforest with snow, but hey ho, in Patagonia, you get all these wonderful and strange combinations. The water in this part of Chile is absolutely clear and clean. It comes from snow and glaciers, so therefore it's possible to drink out of the mountain streams, which is what we did most of the time when we were stopping for lunch. Having our guide Matthias with us was fantastic because it allowed us to identify with his help the flora and fauna along the way. I don't think I really need to say very much about this particular walk, apart from wow, just look at those mountains and the views and enjoy. La Confluencia is only a short distance from the car, or from the Carretera Austral, but it's absolutely highly recommended place to go and visit. The Confluencia is the point at which the Nef and the Baker rivers meet, and what's really fascinating is that one of the rivers, I think it's the Nef, comes directly from the glacier and it looks very cloudy, whereas the Baker River is absolutely totally crystal clear. I really enjoyed not only watching the power of the river as it tumbled across the rocks, but also standing very close so that I could be splashed with the spray from the river. It was just a really fantastic experience, and one that I would absolutely highly recommend to anyone in the area. Park Patagonia is an area where rugged mountains and civilization, if you want to call it that, meet. There is a very expensive hotel in Park Patagonia which we didn't visit because it cost an absolute arm and a leg apparently to stay there. But we did really enjoy visiting the area and walking in the area, seeing the guanacos was really nice. It was a bit surreal seeing this cultivated area set right in the midst of rugged mountainous landscape. It was also a bit bizarre finding the cemetery in the midst of this landscape as well. The grave is of Douglas Rainsford Tompkins, who was the founder of this part of, well, putting the hotel together and civilising, if you want to call it, this area. The fossil walk wasn't just a walk for fossils, it was a walk to fossils, and it was a really enjoyable day. As with most of the walks, you need to drive to the bottom and then park your car and sort of head up the hill. As you can see, there were lots of fossils to be found, and the fossils who took this walk really enjoyed searching among the rocks to find their compatriots. Among both the other people in the group, the fossils, and the boots that we were wearing. And again, fun was to be had when we reached the snow line of this particular hill. Park Tamango has a multitude of different trails to walk along. The walk that we undertook involved taking a boat to very close to a mirador where we started the walk. The mirador looks out towards Argentina, although you can't actually see Argentina from the mirador. What you could see was looking down the absolutely crystal clear river, and you could, even though we were quite high up, you could really see quite far down into the river, which was just fantastic. Wooden steps were there to help us on this part of the walk. Perhaps this is Patagonia's answer to Europe's Via Ferrata, Via Buda, perhaps? I groaned a little about the prospect of getting up at 4 a.m. to drive to the cliff where the condors live. However, the experience was well worth the early start. The condors wake around about dawn and begin to circle the cliff area on thermals in order to gain height. They then disappear for the day, looking for food, returning in the evening. Condor are the largest flying land birds in the Western Hemisphere and second only to the wandering albatross in terms of wingspan. Condor can live for 50 years or more and mate for life. They can travel as much as 160 miles a day in search of the carrion that is their staple diet. It was absolutely amazing to sit and stand and watch these majestic birds flying around the cliffs and the river and soaring above the river before they took off in search of food for the day. Our search for food was not quite as energetic as that of the condors. We were provided with a fantastic, amazing asado or barbecue in Chile style at a local ranch. It was a delicious meal and we were all really enjoyed it as we were hungry from our very early morning start. The walk to the prehistoric hand art cliff was really interesting, as was hearing the history of the place. They're about 3,000 years old and were thought to be a means of communication, also a social event for prehistoric man. There are examples of these hand art paintings in other areas of Chile and also in Argentina. And I guess that might have been made by the same people who travelled to different parts of their environment. Visiting the rodeo was not really an organised part of the trip, but we came across it and decided to go and have a look, which was really interesting, seeing the men lassoing the cows. They do this in order to brand them, as I guess, so that when they're released into the fields, people know which cows belong to whom, and it's a very social event, and understand that following it they would have an asado or barbecue and a few drinks, I guess. The helicopter ride across the glacier was one of the highlights of our trip, and it was a completely, totally amazing experience. I don't think I could add anything more to it than just watch and marvel at how magnificent and wonderful Patagonia in Chile is. The Marble Caves of Chile are located at General Carrera Lake. The Marble Caves are an unusual geological formation located at the centre of the lake. They represent a group of caverns, columns and tunnels formed in monoliths of marble and have been formed by wave action over the last 6,200 years. We visited the caves by Zodiac, but it might have been more fun to visit by canoe or kayak, as you would get closer to the caves and be able to kayak your way into them in a way that wasn't really possible very easily in the Zodiac. However, we did have a really fantastic experience and thoroughly enjoyed both the Zodiac ride, which was very bumpy, and also the visit to the caves, which were just incredibly fantastic. I've never seen anything like this in my life before, and I would absolutely definitely recommend this to anyone travelling anywhere near this area. In fact, I would go out of my way to find them. Whitewater rafting was quite a different, or a very different experience from the visit to the Marble Caves. But we all thoroughly enjoyed our experience, and we thought it was quite exhilarating and fun. We were even given the opportunity to solo raft, if you want to call it that, by jumping into the icy glacial waters, and some of us madly decided to do that. It was such good fun. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole experience of just floating down, although I have to say it was a tad cold. The fun and laughter during the whitewater rafting trip was replicated within some of the disorganised trips that we had, or experiences that we had while in Patagonia. This river crossing being just one example. And then two of our group decided to have a little go at scaring the cows and then bullfighting. I have to say the cows seemed completely disinterested in the whole proceeding. In fact, totally ignored them. But it was good fun to watch, and why not? Pisco Sur is a national drink of Chile. It's absolutely delicious and can be easily made using our step-by-step instructions. First of all, you mix 3 measures of Pisco Sur liqueur, 2 measures of lime juice and 1 measure of sweetener together, and to this mixture you add some egg white. If you're not entirely sure that you've got your combinations correctly, we would suggest that you do a little taste test and then add the rest of the Pisco Sur bottle to your mixture, thus producing the perfect Pisco Sur as our independent tasters or testers, Sue and Colin, will verify, and then you can serve it at the bar. If you have any egg whites or eggs left after you have completed your major Pisco Sur, then we would suggest turning your hand to a little bit of egg tossing. Egg tossing is an ancient sport originating in medieval Britain. Originally associated with the church and Easter, the sport has now moved on to be a team competition where people toss an egg between themselves, taking a step back after each successful catch. The world record for throwing an egg and catching it unbroken is nearly 100 metres. Our Pat won our competition, and although we are not claiming a world record, we are considering entering her for the World Egg Throwing Championship, which is held in Swaton, England in June every year. And finally we went in search of the trout of our dreams.